Moving on now to members' reports, and I'll start round this side this time because I started around that time. So, Councillor Kepp, anything to report? No. Councillor McCullough?
Yes, if you just give me half a minute.
Oh, hang on, I jumped out on that other thing. Sorry, but carry on. Okay, we're doing item 15. Sorry, Tim. We'll come back to 14 in two takes. Councillor McCullough?
Are you still waiting for me?
Yes.
Yes.
Members' report.
A meeting of the Wairakei Tourist Park Development Committee did take place on the 16th of August, and as I reported briefly to TKMP, the major business of the meeting was the development and progressing of an investment prospectus for the park to attract future investment and to attract future lessees to the vacant lots available. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burnett, Councillor Downard, Councillor Ormsby.
Yes, Your Worship. As you know, yourself, myself, CEO and Councillor Hickling went to the local government conference in Auckland in July. I don't intend to give a written report. I'll give a verbal one as far as my input to the conference was. The main observation that I made with that local government conference was it was situated around, and you don't need to be a rocket scientist to guess, the structure and the possible workings of the super city. Councillor Hickling over there smiling. The first day we had the usual talks from the local government chairman, the Mayor of Auckland, Mr. Banks. I won't need to tell you what, if you want to look it up, just go on the website and look it up. Lord Mayor Campbell of Newman of Australia was a very interesting person to listen to, and how they turned once Brisbane City down, which was one of the worst economic cities in Australia, turning it around something that it now exceeds our gross domestic product, whatever you call it, GPD, in a phenomenal way, the way he did it, by working with people, businesses, making sure that the system works like, I guess they had a situation over there like Resource Management Act, getting people to go into business, making things a lot easier without actually affecting the environment, cleaning up the Brisbane River, which was a mess, and things like that. So he was a very interesting character. A guy called Mr. Peter Briggs, Australia, he was the advertising guru who put up, I think it was, Councillor Hickling, was there 4 adverts of beer, and they were actually classical. I actually haven't checked the internet to see whether they're on there, but if they're on there, they're worth watching, because they were actually, see Councillor Hickling over there smiling, but he was a very interesting character on the first day. The other two, so that first day sort of went ahead. The Prime Minister, of course, opened the meeting, and he didn't say too much that I didn't take too much notice of, but they were sort of patting themselves on the back and hoping that the super city would work local government. Second day was an interesting one. Well, no, hang on a minute. Mr. Hyde spoke in the afternoon on the first day, and to lay some of your fears that we had 12 months ago with the local minister, Mr. Hyde, who I thought was a bit of a far-fetched sort of character, and there was talk around the country that he was starting the super city aspect and was going to end up all over New Zealand. Rotorua and Taupo all going to be combined and all this sort of carry on. Well, let me assure you, I think over the last 12 months, Mr. Hyde has said so much flack. He's done a 360. And I see the Mayor laughing there because I was sitting next to him and kicking him in the shins. He's changed his whole complete attitude. As far as he was concerned, local will stay in local government. And he was quite adamant that that was going to happen, i.e. the status quo would remain, and that community boards was certainly going to be there. And I'll touch briefly on those shortly. So if that's any assurance, that's what the Minister is now telling us, as far as he was concerned. So your fears have been allayed, but take it for what you will when it comes to political talk. We had a workshop, Councillor Hickling and I went to the one that was called Local Boards, and I was going in there thinking, oh, this is going to be good. We're going to all hear about community boards, and Councillor Hickling was sitting next to me. We're all keyed up. Well, to me it was basically a flop, because all I got out of it was how the boards in the super city were going to be structured. And there was a few bit of contentious issues going around the room. In fact, Mr. Hyde was sitting up the front, and there was a gentleman there, he's 84 I believe, Mr. Corbyn, used to be the mayor of Waitakere, who's now standing for one of the boards up at Waitakere. He stood up and gave the minister a real good swerve. And I won't repeat what he said, but it wasn't very nice. Most people in the room sort of, I think, basically agreed with him. But I didn't get too much out of that. Councillor Hickman might want to comment further on that. But we did have speakers like Jenny Rowan from the Mayor of Kapiti and one or two others speaking around with regards to, they touched briefly on community boards. Mr. Hyde assured us that the community boards were, as far as he was concerned, were here to stay. The second day was also interesting. I went to the Rural Provincial Sector's annual general meeting, and I think Councillor Hickling went to the environment one. I don't know where His Worship the Mayor or the CEO went to, but they can speak for themselves. But this to me was very important, because the first speaker up was Minister Carter, John Carter. And Mr. Carter is the chairman of the on the select committee of hearing submissions on the amended Local Government Act. He made it quite plain that there were some things that were very high on the government's agenda, and the first one that came to mind and got an actually big clap was the auditors' costs were too high. When it came to auditing councils and territorial authorities and city councils' books, etc., they said that was ludicrous. They were too high, and the first thing that crossed my mind was His Worship the Mayor using words about outright thuggery or theft or something, I think, a couple of years ago. The next one he spoke about was the civil defence, because I think he is the Minister of Civil Defence, and what good job that they're doing around the country, and they intend to make sure that that continues the way it's going and possibly put more funding into that. I've got a note down here, senior cits. I didn't write anything more about that because I'm a senior cit, so it couldn't have been all that interesting, but there was some mention there about looking after the elderly population because of the what are they think now, because there's too many of us coming on board, etc., etc. I don't know whether that was a vote catching speech or not. Rural roading was another one that was touched on by him, and it was he got a couple of fiery questions from the far north and one or two others around about the amount of money that is, or the lack of money that is not going into rural roading around New Zealand. And there was concerns expressed by a lot of mayors that were in that room with where the money was going, and it was all going to Auckland. And some of the mayors that basically were telling them they had a guts full of etc., etc. The next one is was quite dear to my heart, and Mr. Carter made it quite plain that the Select Committee in the amendment would be looking at the word consultation. He basically said that under the old Act, consultation was ludicrous. Councils and election and politicians have to do more consultation than they should be doing. He said that you people are elected in a responsible position where you shouldn't have to be running back every 5 seconds to consult with your community if you wanted to buy a loaf of bread. So watch the space. I think you're going to find that the amount of consultation that is in the current Local Government Act will be amended, but I don't know how far they're going to go. But he made it quite plain and clear that that was one of the things that they would be certainly concentrating on, because it's taking up a lot of time and a lot of money. He left the room. The next one was Dale Williams spoke about the Mayor's Task Force, about Maori youth, etc. Made the comment that that was too high. People under 25 were having problems getting jobs. I won't elaborate too much on that. The next person in was Morris Williamson. He spoke basically on the LINs, the modern technology, leaking homes, builders not qualified, all those sort of things. You can build your own house for yourself once every 3 years, and things like that. He said, so watch the space when it comes out and they're looking at, as you know, changing the Building Act I don't know whether Mr Greenwood got all those stuff yet. So those were the main things. And then we had Councillor Maureen Walker from Rotorua and another councillor from, I think she's the Deputy Mayor of Kaipira. I actually didn't get her name. I wrote it down. They gave up and gave a presentation that local government had set up a board to deal with Maori issues, etc., and it works out of Wellington. Their main concern was trying to get Maori to vote at election time for local government, trying to get Maoris to stand for election and local government elections, etc. That actually, believe it or not, got quite a bit of response from one or two district councillors around New Zealand and the mayors, and one district councillor from Gisborne is to stand out. He stood up, he's a Maori extraction, he's similar colour to myself. He stood up and he says, well, I don't know what all the hogwash is about. We had 3 Maori representatives on the Gisborne District Council, and he named them, and one I know quite well is an ex-policeman. He actually got in more trouble when he was in the police than I did. And their mayor, he's got a Chinese name, Mr.
Ming Foon.
Speaks fluent Maori. So he couldn't understand where they were coming from. And then another mayor stood up and basically said, well, we've tried our best, but no one wants to come forward and put their hand up. So I just thought I'd raise that. That is definitely an issue of getting, and they would wish any input about back to them if we could find a solution of how to get the Maori people to come out and vote. And I guess it's just trying to reiterate to them that it is their democratic right to do so. That was basically my lot. I don't think I've got anything more to add unless Councillor Hickley, when it gets to your turn, that you have. But once again, Councillors, thank you for sending me along. That was it. But generally, I don't get too much input out of local governments, but I found that some of those topics were interesting. I seem to get more out of planning issues because it's a little bit dear to my heart. But all in all, it went quite well. But their main focus was on the super city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom, for the full explanation of the local government conference. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I got a phone call from my good friend Bob Harvey last night, and ex-mayor, well, still a mayor till October the 9th of Waitakere. He's just got the chairmanship of the waterfront board that they're setting up. So it'll be interesting to see how it all goes. Councillor Blythe? Councillor Hickley?
Well, Don, you covered that pretty well. I don't know whether I could add too much.
Well, you went to one that I didn't go to, so...
Yeah, but it was interesting because I don't know whether you did actually notice, but on the programme, those same people was moving around the different sector groups.
Is that what they were doing?
Yeah, doing the same presentation. So...
Did I get it right then?
You got it right, yeah. I also would just like to comment on Rob's account of John Keyes' address and Rodney Hyde's in the Loop a fortnight ago. I think it was precise and to the point and exactly what those two people were saying. For me personally, I think the networking at some of these particularly the local government conference is really important to me. You meet a lot of new people and obviously older acquaintance that you've met through local government. What did I personally get out of the conference? I think it just gives me a little bit more confidence to make the right type of decisions. It sort of just instills a little bit more confidence in you when you talk to different councillors from different places. And so I thank the council for allowing me to go, and I did enjoy it. Thank you.